Happy New Year, folks. We are here for the 2024 year-end award show. Thank you to everybody who's been supporting us here at ITRBoxing this year. It's been a pretty wild year for boxing. A lot of good, plenty of bad, but tonight, or this afternoon, I should say, is about highlighting the many exciting moments and accomplishments of 2024. Nibs, you were just saying before we went on air, there's certain years where it is difficult to narrow everything down to one thing: fighter of the year, knockout of the year. And this year in particular, there was multiple candidates, for each category that we went through. And trust me, we went back and forth on a bunch of them. I wouldn't, I wouldn't die on the hill on a lot of these picks, to be honest. It just seems like the best ones that we could come up with. So as we go through them, we hope that, you guys leave your picks in the description as well. If you agree, let us know. If you disagree, let us know. That's what we're here for.
Happy New Year to everybody. You know what I'm saying? Be safe out there. Just want to real quick, boxing aside, everybody be safe. Get your DD if you're going to be out there drinking, or pick a safe spot to land and stay there. Don't end up on World Star. We love you, man. Let's get it.
So I think we'll just kind of go award by award, and hopefully as people start to hop in the chat, I see we got a couple here now. We will hear from you guys. We'll hopefully get some feedback, and we'll go one by one. But the most obvious being fighter of the year. This was actually the one category where I don't think it was particularly difficult. We sort of came to this one pretty quickly, and that's Alexander Usyk. I feel like there's people that have mixed feelings about Usyk and how he fights and his accomplishments, but there's one thing that I think everyone can agree on: he's very effective, and he's fighting in a style that the modern heavyweight, as we've talked about, just really can't handle in terms of his speed, his athleticism. And having 24 rounds with Tyson Fury this year, and winning two 12-round decisions against a guy 50 pounds heavier than him, 6 inches taller than him, career heavyweight, and really solidifying not just his place as the best heavyweight right now, but an all-timer in many ways. And I think to not be able to recognize that 2024 was the year of Usyk, I just feel like you're not enjoying, the greatness that we're watching.
I think if you debate it, I don't know if I can respect your boxing knowledge. Apologies, my internet's a little slow today. But I'm going to tell you guys something. For all of the reasons Dakota just mentioned and more, Usyk's ability inside the ring is amazing. But for me, the reason he gets this is not just because of what he did in the ring. That's amazing, right? You beat an all-time guy, period, right? Most people considered him the best heavyweight of our generation, right? Considering his accomplishments, his style, who he beat, how he beat him. Throw all that in on top of the fact that this dude is going through that at the time that he's going through it, right? People have to understand the Ukraine is going through a war, a real war. This is on their doorstep. This isn't a war they're fighting for someone else. This isn't something that they're sending troops someplace else. This is moms and dads and uncles and brothers and sisters outside with their pots and pans fighting. You know what I'm saying? Real soldiers. And he's got real family in those types of situations. He himself went back to try to help. This is a real thing he's dealing with on a regular basis. And then to put all of that aside and come out here and oh yeah, I'm a beat the guy that everybody thinks is the guy. Hands down.
And I think the other thing too is we talk about the people's champ. You know what I mean? Like, he's really the people's champ out there, bro. He's always talking about his people and what they've been through the last 2 or 3 years. He's one of those guys where he's an entertainer, but he's not cringy, right? He really is like an athlete first. And there's so many times, particularly, you know, in our country, there's a lot of guys where we respect what they do in the ring, but outside the ring, they're a little bit cringy. They're a tough hang. And with Usyk, it just seems like he's kind of the total package in terms of what you want from a champion. Of course, this is not to minimize, you know, the accomplishments of Bam Rodriguez this year, having a real passing of the torch moment, getting that win over Estrada, getting up off the deck to have the passing of the torch. He had an incredible year himself. You know what I mean? So that's definitely not to take away from him.
I think when you look at the totality of it, right? Again, for me, it's not just what you did athletically. It's all the other stuff, right? The things we don't talk about in boxing all too often. There was a time where we were talking about, you know, Teofimo and Garcia and Fury for that matter. I mean, people forget not too long ago, Fury was on top of the world and gave it all away because he was going through some shit. It's this. Imagine having to go through that and then still perform. That's what Usyk is doing. So for me, it's all the things that we have, us normal humans, right, have to deal with. And then this guy comes in and he's a gladiator for 24 rounds with one of the baddest men on the planet. And he wins. Got to give it to him, bro. And again, like you said, no shade to Bam Rodriguez. I mean, Bam is Bam. And you know, we could have an argument if it weren't for Usyk, you know, Bam would be the guy, right? But when you look at what he's done, how he's done it, when he's done it, this is the shit they make movies about.
It's actually a testament to Usyk that, you know, Bam, between, you know, the end of 2023 when he beats Sonny Edwards and now, is really, it's almost like common knowledge to boxing fans at this point that Bam Rodriguez is like a top 6, top 7 pound for pound guy, and he did it quick. You know what I mean? He was on his way, but he did it quick to where it's like, yeah, you know, you got Usyk, Inoue, Crawford, Canelo, and you got Bam. And Bam's in that conversation now. So that's really how highly we feel about, you know, Usyk's performance this year, is that a guy who had really like a career-defining moment is going to get second place on this one, and that's just what it is. I think one other guy worth mentioning real quick that we talked about when we were considering this is, of course, Daniel Dubois, who a few years ago, not terrible, a year and a half ago, loses to Usyk, has the loss to Joyce, where people are questioning his heart and how much, you know, he wants it. And just this year alone, beating Filip Hrgović, beating Anthony Joshua, just prior to that, you know, beating Jarrell Miller. This is a guy who has really turned his career around, and it's been a wild sometimes when guys like that, like Victor Ortiz, they have those moments where people question their heart. Sometimes they recover from that, sometimes they don't. And he's really done a 180 this year.
That's a perfect way to segue right into our comeback fighter of the year, Mr. Dubois. And for me, the reason he gets that isn't because he had some really good fights this year. It's how he did it, right? It's not just that you came back. Tank came back from a long layoff going to prison. That's something I don't wish on anybody, right? He had a good year. You see a lot of guys that came back, right? Just to mention a few names. Daniel Dubois came back and was impressive. Like Daniel Dubois came back and was on a mission, and everybody in his way was just food. And brother ate up. Like, I mean, real talk. I don't think, and we've had this discussion, I don't even think we thought he was going to run through Anthony Joshua the way he ran through Anthony Joshua. I don't think anybody on the planet saw that coming, right? I mean, completely annihilated Anthony Joshua. And while you're playing, before he got knocked out, Anthony Joshua was in the running for comeback fighter of the year, you know, considering the year he was having. That's honorable mention. And again, it's not just beating guys, it's beating high-level guys that, you know, or guys that hadn't been stopped before, and the way you beat them and the way he ran. I mean, Anthony Joshua went tooth and nail with Usyk in his you know, last fight with Usyk. And Daniel Dubois made Anthony Joshua look like he just started boxing. That's how impressive
he mugged him.
That win is.
He fucking mugged him. You know what I mean? And right. I didn't. I still had questions. You know, the Hrgovic win was like, all right, this guy's made some changes. The Miller win, the Hrgovic win. This is a 50-50 fight with Joshua now, whereas prior to that, I would have absolutely favored Joshua without a doubt. But those two wins made me feel like, all right, he's in the mix. And then to just mug, you know, like the third best heavyweight of his era, you know, I wasn't sure if Daniel was a top 5 heavyweight. And now there's really no doubt that he's a top 5 guy. And with his fight with Joseph Parker coming up, it's very possible that he's like the second or third best heavyweight right now. And I guarantee you, a year ago, nobody thought, you know, that was the case.
I'm here to tell you, if he beats Joseph Parker, you put him solidly in that number 3 spot, and you go on about your business. Let's be very clear. Tyson Fury is still the number 2 guy, right? He even as impressive as Usyk is in with his wins over Tyson Fury, Tyson Fury is a very close second to Usyk, and that's not going to change, right? Unless somebody else comes in and wipes the floor with him, which I don't see happening. Daniel Dubois is number 3, no debate. Now, there's another guy, right? We're going to say this a lot this show. There's another guy, Joseph Parker, who could have been the comeback guy of the year, right? Look, we are spoiled in 2024. We had a lot of good shit happen. Joseph Parker, look at that guy. I mean, if it weren't for the level, I think, that Daniel Dubois had done it, and Joseph Parker won it last year, right? But you look at just career-wise, where Joseph Parker was 5 years ago to where he is now. Jesus, man. Take my hat off. I don't even have one on, but goddamn it, I'm taking it off anyway.
Well, I mean, hell of a year for Daniel Dubois. I think the next one we should get into, because it's also one that we went back and forth for a long time, and it was like right at the 12th hour, we were like, oh no, that's the one. It was one we hadn't even considered, and that's Lucas Body getting a brutal knockout over Ashton Silva, who was a big prospect going into that fight and was certainly a favorite. I think Body was viewed as a bit of a step up. He wasn't somebody that I was particularly familiar with. I don't think anybody expected him to get laid out the way he did, Nibs.
I mean, good God. Like, this is one of those knockouts that I don't know, and I hope he does, but I don't know if Ashton Silva comes back from that, right? Because that was replayed and replayed and replayed, still is, right? When you Google or you search on YouTube most brutal knockouts, this is going to be on that clip. No matter which clip you click on, it's going to be on there. And let's be very clear, H2O was winning that fight. I don't think I had given a round to the other guy, to Body, right? I think I had H2O blowing him out. I was like, this is just going to be a whitewash. He's walking away with this. He can go into cruise control. Aha. Guess what happens when you think you're blowing somebody out and you let your guard down or you get into cruise control in this sport of boxing? You got to remember the other guy's still there to win. Alan Garcia found that out the hard way. H2O Silva found it out the hard way. And guess what? He caught a 2-piece in a biscuit. And the next thing you know, somebody's having to remind him what his name is.
And how many fucking knockouts did we have to go through to get to this one? I mean, Dubois' knockout over Joshua was tremendous. Joshua's knockout over Ngannou was also tremendous. We watched Hot Rod get a brutal knockout over Sullivan Barrera. It felt like a career-ending knockout. And then Hot Rod goes on to have a really good performance against David Morrell, which have people so good that people are now questioning Morrell's ability at light heavyweight. Bam Rodriguez's body shot knockout over Estrada. There was a ton of really incredible and sudden stoppages. Again, Angelo Leon Venato, I could keep going, right? It took us forever to kind of narrow it down to this one. But ultimately, it just seems like this one was the most sudden at all of them, which I think is ultimately one of the criteria for knockout of the year.
Yeah, I mean, again, here we go again. It's debatable, right? Like you could talk about all the knockouts we had this year. There were probably not probably there were much higher profile knockouts, bigger championship level knockouts. There were some knockouts where you know that when you see a knockout and without even thinking you go, oh shit, or that happened a lot this year. But the devastation of the H2O knockout, plus it was textbook. I mean, those were beautiful shots. I mean, you couldn't throw the combination any better. You couldn't land it any better. The timing couldn't have been any better. And then the follow up is what got me too, right? You see a lot of guys, they land one punch, they back up, they start taking pictures. He's throwing his combination in this knockout. That was the most impressive part to me. He didn't stop his combination when he knew his guy was hurt. He followed through. I'm here to tell you, man, thing of beauty. And unfortunately, the H2O Silv, he gets an award, just so happens to be on the negative end of that.
And hopefully, that's a win that Lucas Body can catapult into a more meaningful matchup for himself in 2025. I think at one point he had a bigger fight scheduled. I don't remember exactly what it was, but he's somebody I'd like to see in the mix.
Yeah, I mean, he has everything you want in a guy. He doesn't give up, right? That is another thing we don't talk about nearly enough on this show or at all. I think that gets mentioned. Guys never give up. Mendoza against Fundora, right? People thought Fundora was doing the same thing. He stops him. Same thing here with Body and H2O. Clearly getting outworked, clearly getting outclassed. H2O clearly the more athletic of the two, and he's walking away with this thing. But he gets lazy for that amount of time, and the next thing you know, again, smelling salts.
Smelling salts is right, bro. Some really great knockouts this year. Why don't we jump into our fight of the year now? Because that's, I think our answer may not be entirely satisfactory to some, but it feels like, to me, the most obvious answer. The fight of the year is Usyk versus Fury 1 and 2. And we're splitting it into those two fights because ultimately I can't think of another 24 rounds of boxing that had more influence and made bigger waves in the sport than their matchup. The first one, just such massive, momentum swings. Usyk doing well early, Fury really taking over the middle part of the fight. Usyk dropping Fury in the ninth and beating him up down the stretch. And then we just had our rematch not too long ago, last week. That was really a great sequel. You really couldn't have asked for more. They both came in more prepared, more tactically adjusted. And I think that those two fights, that matchup, that is ultimate. Those are the fights that ultimately define 2024. Even though we had, Mario Barrios and Abel Ramos, even though we had Ray Ford and Otabek Kolmatov, even though we had Fabio Wardley and Fraser Clark the first go around, there were so many high action matchups this year. But it's hard to say that any of those had the impact on the sport that Alexander Usyk and Tyson Fury did.
I'm here to tell you. For me, my favorite fight of the year was the Raymond Ford. I forget. I never know how to pronounce the guy's name. My fault. That fight was my favorite. Katie Taylor, Amanda Serrano, to me, was the most important fight in women's boxing. Usyk and Fury, it felt like one big, long-ass fight, right? Like, I didn't feel like the first fight, which was a classic. I mean, all time. That's all. You can put that on an all-timer list, right? It had everything you wanted. Control in the beginning, high drama with the knockdown in the 9th round. Fury's fighting to survive, but his balls to come back, right? Which we come to love from Fury. Anytime you see him in distress, You know the comeback is going to be furious. No pun intended. Maybe a little. But then you follow that up with one of the most tactically skillful heavyweight fights that wasn't boring, right? This wasn't a skillful tactical fight that we all snoozed through the second time around. This was high level shit with, and they're both slinging it, bro. Like they were both hurt throughout that fight. There were both times where you go, oh shit, Fury landed this punch. Then the second you think Fury's gaining on him, Usyk comes back and he's throwing his shit. High level tactical shit at a heavyweight level. You can't ask for more, bro. I almost wish they would have reversed it. Like I wish the second fight would have happened first. Then we would have got the high drama fight, second. But that's splitting hairs. When you think about, they could have phoned it in, really, because the second fight, hey, we got our checks. We're this isn't going to hurt either one of us as far as where our careers go. They could have phoned it in or just been winging punches trying to knock each other out. These two dudes, they respected each other. They respected the sport. They gave us what everybody should want in heavyweight boxing. It's two of the best dudes going at it. And now we get to debate. There are people that will debate who won. They'll debate, who's your favorite. But at the end of the day, you can't debate that we got two classic fights from two classic fighters.
And I think part of why the second one was maybe a little less dramatic was because they were both more prepared. It felt like Fury looked like he was a little more assertive and knowing what he wanted to do. It didn't matter because Usyk also had the answers for that adjustment, which was the combination punching, which was not letting, when Fury was able to put a body on him, he didn't push him around the way you'd expect him to. And I think that Usyk stayed strong on the inside in those moments and was throwing combinations that Fury couldn't handle. But ultimately, with guys that good, they're not going to have 12 rounds with you and not learn something. You know what I mean? They're going to come back with something different. And that was also, I think, why it was less dramatic, but why it was so exciting. Another perfect example of that, which we also kind of considered, was Artur Beterbiev beating Dimitri Bivol, which, while not traditionally like an action fight, it's another example. It's a Crawford Spence. It's an Usyk Fury. It's the two best of an era, finally meeting. It was a fight we had been waiting for really since Bivol had beaten Canelo. So it had been at least talked about for that period of time. Beterbiev gets hurt a couple of months ago. They got to push it back again. Thankfully, they finally got in the ring and produced maybe not a classic in terms of action, but if you're a boxing head, you know what you're watching. That's another fight where it's like, these are the fights that are really moving the needle in the sport.
When you look at footwork, punch placement, and offensively defensive fighters, right? And for those that may not understand what I'm saying, you get a guy that isn't just there to parry punches, get out of the way, and survive. He's fighting back defensively, right? He's giving you what just enough to get you to back the fuck up. That's what you got from both guys, right? And I think there was a little bit of a letdown because there was so much hype coming into this. These are the two best light heavyweights, period, right? Not only, you could argue outside of Roy Jones Jr., these are the two best light heavyweights of all time, right? Like, let's be really clear. There's an argument to be made there. There are a couple of guys here or there, right, where you could say, okay, well, they had some moments. These dudes, career light heavyweights, right? They're the best we have. So I think there was an expectation that this was going to be Frazier Ali, some kind of way, or Spence Crawford, right, where we got the high drama with all the knockdowns. These aren't those guys. These are two technical fighters. Artur Beterbiev, yeah, he's got the knockout streak, but you're not knocking out Bivol, bro. That's just not going to happen. And I think that's where a lot of people are like, oh, well, there was no knockdowns and this, that, and the third. They looked scared. No, they were, again, high-level, intelligent fighters fighting another GOAT. That's the thing people have to understand. You get so spoiled with all the knockdowns, right? You have to understand these are two of the best fighters in the world. So if nobody gets knocked down, guess what? It's because they're two of the best athletes, period. And then they're two of the best fighters. So to me, it was a great fight. Yeah, I understand the letdown for the average fan, but yeah, I'm with you, bro.
Listen, a lot of fight fans want to see blood, and literally and figuratively, and I get that. But sometimes when you have an ass whooping in the ring, that's what's called a mismatch. You know what I'm saying? And ultimately,
Yep.
the fights that move the needle are not mismatches, and that's why it's so special when you get a Spence Crawford, and Crawford's so incredibly dominant because nobody saw that coming. That was legitimately 1-2, no questions asked. But ultimately, the best fights are going to be evenly matched ones, and that was what we got with Better Bevan Bivol. That was what we got with
Hey, look,
Barrios and Ramos.
not
And with
everything
Luther Fury.
not everything can be Ward Gotti, bro.
Exactly. Those are special moments in time. You know what I mean? And ultimately, those fights often don't come from top 5 fighters. That's just the reality. You know, top 5 fighters don't get hit that way. And so when we start talking about fight of the year, we're talking about a combination of action fights and athletically significant. And I felt like Usyk and Fury gave us both of those things.
I think again, you take the first fight, that was the heavyweight version of Gotti Ward, right? Like when you look at it, and then you get the second fight, and it's like they were both on their Mayweather shit. Like, all right, hold on, wait a minute. We did the Rock'em Sock'em Robots first time around. Let's get our shit on. You know what I'm saying? I'm not getting knocked out by this little guy. That's what Fury's thinking. And Usyk is like, I'm gonna get in here and knock this guy the fuck out. I had him hurt in the last fight. You saw those two worlds combine, and then again, it gave us another classic fucking fight. Could it have been better? I don't know. I think when people look at the second fight, they're judging it against the first one, and it's like you can't do that because then yeah, it's the first one's a classic. You have to judge the second one on its own merit. You know what I mean? Because they're two different fights. But yeah, I mean, if you're comparing the two, well, shit, the first one is, the first one is and I give it to Fury. That's him Wilder 3, bro. Like that's that's top. That's hard to fucking beat. Him and Wilder 3. That's creme de la creme. You know what I'm saying? So if you're expecting that every time, well then okay, you're going to be disappointed. But when you get two of the best, there's a possibility that both of those guys are standing at the end of it, and neither one of them look like they've been in a Rocky movie.
And just to give the honorable mention again, just because I thought of it, Virgil Ortiz and Serhii Boachuk had a hell of a fight a few months ago. Two of the best at 154. We didn't really know what Virgil had left in the tank, and we knew that Boachuk was a tough, durable, hard-hitting guy. And that was just a classic, bro. Like, that's really everything you want in a matchup. Two guys in the top 10. That shit was beautiful, bro.
And you mentioned the Barrios fight, right? I mean, look, guys, we're splitting hairs. You know what I'm saying? we picked the fight of the year because these are two legends, right? These guys are no brain first ballot Hall of Famers. You can go down the schedule, right? And I want people to understand, truthfully, there are a good 20 fights we were sifting through, and we were like, well, shit. Every time we thought we settled on a winner, it was like, well, shit, remember this fight? Oh, god damn, remember this fight? I'm here to tell you, me and Dakota spent, I want to say, like a good hour, bro, going through this shit. Like, god damn, like, how do we pick? Ultimately, at the end of the day, it's like, well, we got two first ballot Hall of Famers. They gave us two classics. Boom. You know what I mean? Easy money. But trust us, there were a lot of honorable mentions on that list that I conveniently deleted. My fault.
Well, one of those honorable mentions was Ray Ford and Otabek Kolmatov. And ultimately, the 12th round of that fight was our round of the year. It was a round that Ray needed to win to get the win. And Kolmatov hadn't showed any signs of slowing down in that fight, even as Ray was coming on. That was just such a tremendous matchup. Ray Ford, that fight, his fight with Nick Ball was another classic. It really was a good year for Ray Ford in terms of becoming a real high skill action star in American boxing. And by the way, not being, maybe one of those cringy type characters that we were talking about.
And usually you Ray Ford is the breath of fresh air, right? He's the guy we didn't know we needed, right? Like he came out of nowhere as far as boxing heads might know who he is, but the average fan didn't know who Ray Ford was. Well, now they know, right? And I'm here to tell you, I thought he won the fight with Ball, but Ray Ford almost made our list like 3 or 4 different times, which tells you, as picky as we are, this dude is legit. I know he's got the loss against Ball, but I can't wait to see what he does going forward. I hope him and his team. I know he's talking about moving up weights because the weight cuts are killing him. But I'm here to tell you that 12th round, bro. Like that's the prove it round, right? Like you need this to win. Like if you do not stop him, it's a wrap. And credit to his corner for telling him exactly that.
It was like when Shock got that knockout against Rocky Hernandez. Like we all kind of felt like he was winning, but as it turned out, logistically, he was down on the scorecards. And so it was a knockout out of necessity. And sometimes those are the most exciting moments where we know or we don't know what the outcome of the decision is going to be. And then the fighter is able to take that into their own hands. And ultimately it was necessary. You know what I mean? Whether they knew it or not.
It's again, credit to the corners for keeping it 100 with your fighter, right? How many times do we, and we've all been watching fights where we're like, what the fuck is the corner talking about? You're winning. That was good. That was a good round. No, the fuck it wasn't. Tell that dude that he sucks right now and that he needs to do X, Y, and Z.
Get some urgency. Yeah, that was actually one of the criticisms I think we both had for Sugar Hill Stewart in the first Usyk Fury fight. As great of a trainer as he was, even he had kind of a lapse where maybe he misjudged how much Fury needed a knockout in the back part of that fight.
It's one of the things I used to love about Tony Atlas, right? When he was a trainer, he's got some. I mean, if you've never watched clips of Tony Atlas in the corner, like
Teddy Atlas. I don't want to disrespect the OG.
Teddy Atlas, my fault. But if you've never watched him in the corner, they always had his mic on when his fighter came back to the corner, right? Because he always kept it a buck. I love it when trainers do that because you look at, I think it was speaking of Barrios, I think when Tank was fighting Barrios, Floyd came to the corner and was like, hey, they've got you down. You know what I'm saying? And you saw the look on Tank's face, like, what are you talking about? And then what happened? Immediately after that, he put on the gas. Sometimes you need that guy in your corner that's going to tell you, hey, you're getting smoked right now. You might think you're winning. You know what I mean? Because this dude's punches aren't hurting you. I'm here to tell you, points-wise, he's beating you. Get out there and do something. Ray Ford needed somebody to light gas under his ass, and he went out there and did his damn thing. And no disrespect to the opponent, but for me, that's the fight that made Ray Ford a household name and is going to put money in his pockets. I love it, bro. Boxing in 2024 was fucking awesome.
Really, there was a few good candidates, but the main runner-up for us was round 1 of Abdullah Mason versus Johan Vasquez, which was, we didn't expect to necessarily, Vasquez is a very experienced guy. He was 26-5 going in, but we didn't expect to see that. We didn't expect to see Abdullah Mason, who at the time was our top prospect, and is still one of the very best prospects in all of boxing, but we didn't expect to see him get dropped twice, and we didn't know how he would react to something like that, and turns it around, gets a second round stoppage. That was a tremendous first round, and to see the young man, have to dig deep a little bit, I feel like is promising for his future.
I think it's always best to have a young fighter catch those moments early on. right? Because even if you catch a L, you learn how to deal with adversity and you can come back. It's not how you get knocked out or knocked down, it's how you react to said thing, right? You see young prospects get knocked out, you see them get knocked down, and then the glimmer is gone, right? They're like, "Oh shit, I'm not untouchable." They realize it. Some of these guys knew it already. Hey, this is boxing. I can get touched. And they react in kind. Abdullah Mason is one of the ones, bro. But let's be clear. He needed his opponent, right? That round, it's almost 1A, 1B. You know what I mean? But the Ray Ford fight was a championship fight. So you got to give it to him. But I'm here to tell you, I loved everything about that fight.
I think that's a great. We've been finding them left and right here, but I think that's another great segue into our prospect of the year, because when we did our prospect rankings earlier in the year, I think it was in July or August, Abdullah was the top guy, and the guy I'm about to say was not on the list at all. But man, did he close out this year crazy! 19-year-old heavyweight Moses Atauma getting a first round knockout over Dempsey McKeon on the Usyk Fury undercard, having some really tremendous wins this year and fighting with a level of composure and like destruction that you just don't see a 19-year-old kid fight with every day. It's very rare that you see somebody that mature and developed. And I think that the sky is the limit for Moses, man. There's a ton of talent right now. Abdullah is great. Steve Navarro, I'm very excited about Steve Navarro. You know, there's a ton of young guys right now. Jahai Tucker, a lot of talent, man. But it's just Moses right now, I feel like, is really separating himself from the pack in terms of how quickly he's been able to progress.
I mean, what, 10 fights this year? You know what I'm saying? Like he's 20-0, 10 KOs, but it's not just the record, it's the how you do it. You know what I mean? You fight 10 times in a year. It's kind of hard not to put you on a list. You know what I'm saying? Like, and you fight 10 times in a year and you're impressive. And then for me, it's I need to see the growth, right? You see a lot of we'll see a lot of prospects get thrown in there and they'll be super active in their first 4 or 5 years of their career, right? Because for a lot of them, they don't have amateur careers. Amateur careers is almost a thing of the past now, right? You see a lot of guys coming in now, they'll have like 20, 30, 50 amateur fights at max. And then the first 3 or 4 years of their career is an extension of. They're just learning, they're sharpening, they're getting better, right? Then you start seeing them around their mid 20s, you know, or even late 20s, early 30s, getting the bigger fights. But you don't really see any growth. They're just kind of doing the same shit. Every time I see this kid, every time you see Moses, getting better, getting better. Now it's to a point where it's like, well, shit, you know, what contender can we throw this kid in with? Which is crazy when you consider, you know, where he was at the beginning of the year till now. So to me, that's what gives him the prospect of the year. And I think the only knock on Abdullah is, yeah, we saw you in trouble. You know what I mean? Granted, we saw you react beautifully to that. But what
Couldn't have
happens when you
reacted
get
better?
right? But what happens when you get in there with one of these killers? You know what I'm saying? Let me see you figure some other stuff out. I think Moses is ready now.
We just haven't seen those moments of vulnerability from him yet. And those are not moments where I give up on a guy or I say, no. We're saying, no, Abdullah showed that he's got the championship character to go with the skills, right? And every fighter is going to need that at some point. Even, you know, Floyd needed it. Guys that never lost had to have that dig down. But when you have a year like Moses did, right? Very active, blowing guys out that are basically fringe contenders, and you're a teenager, it's hard for me to not say this is the most upside I've seen lately. You know what I mean?
You know what it reminds me of, and maybe I'm overdoing it, but it reminds me of a early Shane Mosley, right? Like, and I know people are like, well, there are two different weight classes, but when you saw Shane in his early career, even more so than Floyd, right? Floyd early on, really until he got his first title fight. You're like, okay, he's beating bums. But then he got his first title fight, and you're like, oh shit, now we see where he is. Shane Mosley was like that guy early. You know what I'm saying? I think even more so than Floyd was. And then, obviously their careers became what they were. But to me, Shane Mosley was, every time you saw him, whether he was fighting a bum, whether he was fighting a prospect, you saw it and you go, give me that, wrap that shit up, teach people how to be that. Moses is that to me. Like, he's already got it, bro. Yeah, he needs some sharpening. He's got some things he needs to work on. But he's got it, bro. And I'm not saying Abdullah doesn't. We all agree Abdullah Mason is the truth. You know what I'm saying? But I see Moses, especially in his weight division, the way he's going. Hey, man, I would I would not be so eager to book him as an opponent if I'm looking for an easy win.
What should we do next, Nibs? We got a couple of more. I think maybe upset, because that was yet another one that we had a lot of trouble picking.
Yeah. For so many reasons. You know what I'm saying? Like, we were just talking about Dubois and Anthony Joshua, right? We're looking at how much steam he has, and then Dubois, we again, nobody thought he was going to happen. But then you throw in Jaime Munguia. Jesus Christ. This dude had it all set up, right? I want to say this. For guys who were trying to have the hometown fight, be careful. We see a lot of these dudes get those hometown fights that are supposed to be toss-up showcases, and it doesn't go too well. And it hasn't recently. You know what I'm saying? You look at Matias. He was having a homecoming fight, lost his belt. Munguia, he's coming. He's on the comeback trail after Canelo. Hometown fight. This is served up on a platter.
Tim Tszyu, bro. Tim Tszyu. He's having a homecoming fight against Bakram Murtazaliev and gets completely wiped out. Didn't see that coming. And that was an incredible upset, right? But Murtazaliev was a titleist, even though he didn't have a lot of exposure in the States. There was a level of, like, we can verify that this guy's the real deal. With Bruno Sarase, I'm looking at a guy, he's 25-0-2 with 4 knockouts. I'm thinking, okay, this is a guy with some skills. There's a reason he is ranked in the belts and whatever, but he's not physically going to present a threat to Munguia. Maybe tactically he will, but physically it's not. It's a low-risk fight in terms of what kind of punishment you're going to take. And Munguia walked in right into that shot, bro. He walked right the fuck into it. We were just talking about it a couple of weeks ago. And frankly, I think as much as you can criticize Munguia and talk about all those things, in Bruno Sarase, you're looking at a guy who had nothing being put in his favor for that fight. He's going to the guy's hometown. He's literally fighting a guy that I think Mexican fans are viewing as a future icon, and he's never fought at the world level even, and here he is, 4 knockouts in 27 fights, and he lays out a top 5 guy in his weight class. That was a special moment, bro. And Angelo Leo beating Venado again, that was an upset. I knew Angelo Leo could fight. We all kind of did going in. It was like, okay, that's a good fight for Venado. That's going to be tough. Didn't expect him to knock Venado out, but it didn't blow my mind the same way that this kid, who's not known as a puncher, lays out a guy that just went 12 rounds with Canelo Alvarez.
4 knockouts. You know what I mean? 4 knockouts. And again, you just said it. Jaime Munguia just went through 12 rounds of hell with Canelo Alvarez, right? In a fight we all thought he was going to get knocked out in after that, especially after he got knocked down early, right? You survived.
And it was a good performance from Munguia. It was a good performance.
But you survived Canelo. There's no way you get knocked out by a guy with 4 knockouts, right? That's not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. And not only did you get stopped, you got stopped convincingly. It's not like, you got knocked down, got right back up, and they waved it off kind of shit. You were hurt, bro. You were done dirty. at home, at home, in a fight that you had no business losing, right? Again, this was supposed to be a showcase. I'm here to tell you, man, all these guys who are scheduling these showcase fights against guys with good records, be careful. Do your homework.
And watch
Please
some
don't be
footage.
for the next
Watch
week.
some footage if you can, because you may not think that Sarase, who's got 4 knockouts, is a good puncher. But I went back and watched a little footage on him. He's swinging on guys, bro. I'm not saying he's a puncher. He's not by any means, but he's not a feather fist. He's not a pitter pat. He's a guy that's pretty explosive, and he was prepared for his moment, bro. And that's what I love when I see a guy who's prepared for his moment. That shit was special, bro.
Hey, here's another thing to consider, right? Yes, we all love knockouts. We all love guys who have knockouts on their ledger. Just because a guy doesn't have a lot of knockouts does not mean he doesn't hit hard. Ask anybody who's fought Floyd Mayweather. I'll never forget, Andre Berto was doing an interview after he fought Floyd, and he said, "Look, he's not the hardest puncher I've ever faced, but he hits you every time, and every time he hits you, it's just enough to go, oh shit." You know what I'm saying? So just because a dude doesn't have, if he's got 25 fights and he's only got 4 knockouts, doesn't mean he's not a hard hitter. Just means he hits hard enough to keep people to back the fuck up. And they're like, well, maybe I don't want to rush him like I would somebody else. You know what I'm saying? Or he's got a really solid chin. So when other dudes are trying to rush in, they realize, hey, my shit isn't hurting him like it does these other guys. And he ends up winning decisions more often than he does getting knockouts. You have to look at how the guy fights and then how people fight him. You know what I mean? And I think Munguia didn't do any of his homework. And for the love of God, keep your hands up, baby.
Especially in the pocket like that, bro. I mean, he was right there to be hit for it. And you know what? When you have a good coach like Eric Morales, you expect to not see a guy have that happen. But when we talk about coach of the year, right? A lot of people are going to go, oh, this is a mailed-in pick. It's Robert Garcia, bro. And I get it. You could pick LeBron James to be MVP of the NBA every single year if you wanted to, and Robert's just that guy. We had, Freddie Fundora having a great year with both his kids, Sebastian beating Tim Zhu, Gabriella getting a fantastic knockout, becoming undisputed champion, of Don Charles, who's the trainer of Daniel Dubois. What a year they've had together, and clearly Don has to have some, responsibility in that. But Robert Garcia's fucking everywhere, bro. If it's a young guy from the West Coast that's coming up, Robert's probably in their corner. If it's a contender that's getting their first shot that's from the West Coast, Robert's probably in their corner. If it's a world-class guy like Bam Rodriguez getting ready to make history, he's got Robert Garcia in his corner. And I just think more often than not right now, he's on the winning side. And it seems like I can't think of anybody in boxing as prolific and reliable as Robert Garcia right now. If I had a young fighter starting out, that's who I'd want in the corner personally.
I mean, Robert Garcia has done it all, bro. He's our era's Freddie Roach. I mean, hell, he was Freddie Roach's era Freddie Roach. Let's be clear. I mean, you look at you don't even have to look at this year. You know what I mean? Just look at his career, bro. In the list of champions, list of contenders, the list of Hall of Famers that are going to be under his tutelage. But then you look at this year alone, and you go, who isn't being trained by Garcia? Who isn't that matters, right? And he's had some losses, just like any good coach will have. But you look at the guys he's training that are winning. They're not just winning because they're talented and he happens to be in their corner. They're winning because he's in their corner and they just so happen to be talented fighters. There's a difference, right? All too often, you get a guy who has some really talented fighters, right? And they make his name. Robert Garcia doesn't need any of these guys, right? He could take Dakota. He could take me. He could take guys off the street. He could take a fighter that comes in his gym tomorrow and is hungry and turn them into a contender in 3 to 5 years. That's why he is the pick, because it's what he can do, and he can take a guy who's got elite level talent and then turn them into a superstar. So there's levels to this game for a reason, right? And not every trainer can do that. Some trainers need you to already be who you are, and then they just come in and they make little changes, right? They hey, do this, do this, do that. Let's not do this round. Let's wait till we do it this round. And hey, there's an art to that too, right? Because let's be really clear, there's a lot of super talented kids out here who need that. But Robert Garcia can build you up from top to bottom, and that's why to me he's trainer of the year, bro. No disrespect to Frondora, because I mean, shit, you got an undisputed daughter and a unified.
Listen, there's a ton of great trainers out there, bro. There's a ton of great trainers. Some of the best trainers in the world right now, nobody's ever heard of. You know what I mean? There's guys in gyms all over the world who are real teachers, and I think that's what you could see that Robert's a teacher. All of his guys are so technically sound. If it's young guys like Albert Chop Gonzalez, who we're both pretty high on, if it's Bam Rodriguez, if it's now, of course, I'm going to forget Murataya. There's so many guys. Lindolfo, they're all so technically sound and there's no doubt that Robert provides that technical foundation for these guys.
Yeah, I mean, you look at it like this, right? If you took Robert Garcia out of the corners of half of his fighters, we wouldn't know who they are.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right. And it's not to say that they're not talented or they wouldn't find a way, but there's no doubt that when you get to that gym, you got everything you need. And if you're willing to take advantage of it, he will bring you to that next level.
Yeah, I do want to give an honorable mention to Fundora, and I know we've mentioned him a couple of times, but you look at a dude who's got not one but two kids, and it's a difference because Sebastian is the boy, Gabriella is the girl. Those are two totally different sports, men and women's boxing, right? But those two kids, I'm here to tell you, yeah, are they talented? Yeah, they come from a fighting family, right? The Fighting Fonduras. It's a movie. But you look what he's put his kids through, the paces that he's put them through. I'm here to tell you, you don't want no smoke with none of the Fonduras, first off. You know what I'm saying? If you walk into their neighborhood, yes, sir, no, ma'am, please, and thank yous. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm here to tell you, the Fonduras ain't to be fucked with. But when you have, it's not just that you have two talented kids. You're talking about a unified women's champion. You know what I mean? She's had a hell of a year. Then you look at Sebastian. And I love Sebastian Fundora because of the way he fights. It frustrates the shit out of me. But, as a fan, I mean, we talked about this, earlier. We're talking about him in Tim Tszew's fight, where it's, the blood and guts, it's the movie fight, right? You're like, holy shit. And, there he goes, and he's a unified champion. It's not just because they're, super talented. It's because their father is Freddie Fundora, and he's built them up to be that way. So I think that's another, great guy to keep your eye on. And I think, again, yeah, they're his kids, but I think he could transition that to other fighters also. Sometimes you got it, sometimes you don't.
Nibs, the last award we have, we weren't initially going to do something like this, but I think it's worth noting. We're calling it our Olympian of the year, and of course, there's so many talented Olympians. We got Amari Jones winning a bronze for us this year. Very proud of that. Our one and only medal, but we're proud of every one we get. But we're calling it the Olympian of the year, and we're going with Beatriz Ferreira because it's not every day that somebody is able to medal at the Olympics. She got a bronze and win a world title in professional boxing and defend it in really impressive fashion on that Akhmadaliev undercard. It just feels like she's worthy of being acknowledged for that accomplishment. It's not something you see every day. And It's not easy to do, bro. It's not easy to do. Muted, bub.
Players fuck up. So it's that Clarissa Shields, Lomachenko air, right? Where it's you roll right from the Olympics into being a championship level fighter. And like you said, 20 years ago, that was a one of one. Now we're starting to see a lot of these career Olympians coming in, and they're not wasting time. They're 4 or 5 fights in, fighting for a world championship. And I think she's probably one of the, if not the most talented of the bunch, bro. You could argue she's having a fighter of the year type of year, when you consider what she's done. And I know the Olympics are only every 4 years, and guys are like, yeah, but the Olympics aren't what it used to be. Tell that to the fighters fighting in it. I'm here to tell you there are a lot of world champions that are pro world champions that can't beat some of these Olympians. You know what I mean?
And they definitely can't beat them in a 3-round fight.
Right. And because the skill set is still something that is you can't match it, right? You look at Andre Ward, hell, Deontay Wilder got a bronze medal, you know what I'm saying? And becomes a world champion. The skill set you learn in the Olympics is unmatched. I don't care if you win, lose, or draw, but going to the Olympics, the things that you learn, right, as far as how to apply your craft, it's undeniable. So the fact that you're able to win an Olympic gold medal or Olympic medal, period, and then come into the pro ranks and get a strap, hey, man, shit.
The craziest part, too, is she got the strap before she got the medal. So she wins a world title in April, starts training for the Olympics immediately, gets a bronze, and comes back to the pros and defends it. Of course, in American boxing, we don't allow that. But to see a fighter do that, I mean, that shit is impressive, bro. And we wanted to make sure that we gave her that acknowledgement.
Yeah, and I do think it's a shame. I think that the rest of the world is starting to lap us in boxing, ladies and gentlemen. And it's because they take their farm system, their Olympic system way more serious than we do. Their Olympic system is what ours used to be. And now, our guys are straight money. They want to get in, get money. They don't want to, nobody's wasting time, quote unquote, with the Olympics. And you see it playing out. Look at, if you go division by division, the amount of U.S. born fighters that are champions is dwindling, right? We don't currently have a heavyweight champion, right? Deontay Wilder was our one. We don't have a cruiserweight. I don't think so. We don't have a cruiserweight champion, light heavyweight champion. Look, you you get down to the middleweights is when you start saying, okay, there's our guy. You know what I'm saying? Why is that? All the, especially these European countries, Ukraine, Russia, you look at British boxing is ridiculous right now. Even some of these smaller countries, they're taking their farm systems way more serious than we are. And if we don't fuck around and fix it, we're going to be in some trouble.
I think it's also, too, there's an emphasis on a level of competition that the Olympics provides. It's international. There's no negotiating who your opponent is. There's a randomness to it that guys in the pros just simply don't have to deal with. And I think that, there are countries where the benefits provided to Olympic athletes is just much better, and it makes it feasible for fighters to remain amateurs because it's not such an expense. Whereas for our guys, it really is an expense. You got to be kind of doing it on your dollar and your family's dollar. And for a fighter coming from a poor background and that's what they're going to be doing, hell nah, let me go get that check. But it does stunt your growth. And a lot of time, you have to be very special, but a lot of those guys just don't make it through the early part of their career. Once they fight a guy that's 30, and spent a bunch of time in the amateurs winning medals, that has a whole bunch of experience that kid just doesn't have. And I think that there's a cumulative effect to that. And then, of course, you see our example, Keyshawn Davis, who did go through the amateur system. He went pro, bro. He was basically ready to go. And now 3-4 years later, he's about to fight Dennis Baranchik for a title. So while you think I need that check now, are you limiting what you could make long term? And I think a lot of times the answer is yes.
Again, I just mentioned him. He's one of the all-time greats. Look at, and you just mentioned Keyshawn Davis is ready to go. Look at how ready Andre Ward was when he came out. I get he was our last gold medal winner, but there was no doubt when he came out of the Olympics, that dude's winning a world championship, right? Period. The goods were the goods. You look at, I want to say, the 90s were really good for us when it came to the Olympics. 92, 96, hell, the 84, 88 teams were, fucking loaded. You know what I'm saying? But we sent our best there. So when to go get their iron sharpened against the rest of the world, right? Even the guys who didn't come back with medals won belts. You know what I'm saying? At some level, they might not have all been Floyd Mayweathers or Andre Wards, but they came back and it was like, damn, nobody wants that smoke. Why? Because they went over there, they got the experiences. What you alluded to, yeah, you might be skipping skipping the step, right? Even you look at the previous Olympics, all those kids who went, they learned some stuff. They came back better than what they were when they left. Again, not all world champions, but way better than when we sent them. I think you have to send the kids to the Olympics, bro. And our farm system to the Olympics needs to get better as well. And I get it; it's an expense, but it's going to be well spent once you get done. Ask all the GOATs.
Wild year in boxing, Nibs. 2024, a lot of ups, plenty of downs. But I think we've done a pretty thorough job of highlighting some of the best moments from this year. Before we wrap it up, why don't you go ahead and take us through our most recent pound-for-pound rankings? We've done both men's and women's pound-for-pound rankings to kind of round out the year. There's been a lot of big fights in the back quarter here, so there's been some movement in the rankings. But take us through that, bro.
My pleasure, man. So ladies first. This year, we're going to go 10 through 1, right? So this year, pound for pound, end of the year, 2024, coming in at number 10. Hey, she's basically family here at ITR. Shadeja Green comes in at number 10. She had a great year, picked up a strap. If I'm being honest with you, at the beginning of the year, I didn't think she'd make the list. Great year, great way to come back. She's earned her spot. Delphine Persoon, she's one of those ones, right? She's always towards the top, always going to be in the mix. Could be a champion tomorrow kind of fighter. Is always going to give you good fights.
He's currently a champion, I'm pretty sure.
She's not, but because of the Baumgardner fight. She had the Baumgardner. She gave up her straps to fight Alicia. We all know how that played out. Yokasta Valle, man. First off, she's a beautiful woman. Second of all, hell of a fighter, though. Like, that's the thing that gets me. These are some of the most beautiful creatures on the world. They out here whooping people's ass. Let's be really clear. She had one of the better fights with a now retired member of the pound for pound community. Gotta love it.
That her fight with Estrada was also could have been a candidate for fight of the year, no problem. That was right up there in the kind of better beef Bivol category, where there was a lot of great action, but it was really like a high skill level affair where if you're a boxing person watching, you know what you're watching. That fight was incredible, bro, and Yokasta was tremendous.
And the only reason Sanisha isn't on this list is because she retired. I don't put retired fighters, and I don't put fighters who have been out of the sport for more than 12 months on the list. There, just to be clear, um, even when Clarissa was out and doing her MMA thing, we took her off the list during that time also. So for those of you that are wondering why a couple people aren't on the list, that's why. Not that we need to, defend ourselves. Natasha Jonas coming in at number 7. She's done the work, bro. You know what I'm saying? And when you get in the ring and you get the dubs, no matter what you feel about how the win happened, she's getting wins, bro. She's a world champion. You can't argue it. You know what I'm saying? When you look at resumes, she's got an impressive one.
And I think also having to move up from 130 and then winning a belt at 154, like Amanda, her ability to change weights and have success, had a great fight with Katie Taylor a few years ago. That was really a flip a coin kind of fight. And now legitimately being a champion at welterweight and junior middleweight, it's, she's doing some incredible shit right now.
Last fight was a split decision win over Michaela Mayer, and she's a unified welterweight champion at 15-2-1. Just really quick to go over Shadeja Green, 15-1, 11 knockouts, super middleweight champion. Last fight was a split decision 10 over Melinda Wapool. And then Delphine Persoon, she's a junior lightweight, doesn't currently hold a strap, but that's because of the previously mentioned no contest against Alicia Baumgartner. She's 49-3. With 19 knockouts. Next on the list is aforementioned Alicia Baumgartner. 15-1, 1 no contest, 19 knockouts. Junior lightweight, undisputed champion. Last fight was a no contest against, again, the aforementioned Delphine Persoon. This was a controversial pick because of the issues that were surrounding her with the performance enhancing. The only reason she got put back on this list is because she was cleared, not just by herself. We all know how that worked, but she was actually cleared by the WBC and by the sanctioning bodies. Hey, okay, you get a pass. And again, she's in at number 6. Now we got our top 5, bro, and really the only mix-up in the top 5 from the previous year is the girl that came in at number 5, but I think it's because of the year she's had. It's undeniable. Gabriella Fundora, we mentioned her earlier with her brother, 15-0, 7 KOs. Her last fight was that fight you just talked about against Gabriella Alanese. Oh, that's funny. Her name is Gabriella too. Last fight, she got the TKO in 7. She is the undisputed champion at flyweight. Again, 15-0, 7 knockouts. Coming in at number 5. Top 4 is pretty much unchanged, but we're going to go through them anyway. Chantel Cameron. I mean, come on, bro. A lot of people will say she beat Katie Taylor twice.
One of the most slept-on fighters in boxing, Chantel Cameron.
Which is amazing considering she's 20-1. Most people argue she should be 21-0. 8 knockouts. Junior welterweight interim champion. Still got a strap though. Her last win was a unanimous decision 10 against Patricia Burgo. Top 3 coming in at number 3. To me, when you talk about pound for pound, Amanda Serrano is the epitome of pound for pound when it comes to boxing, period. I don't even want to disrespect it enough to say just women's boxing. You're talking about 7 division, I think 8, right? I think she's fought in 8, but she's been a champion.
I couldn't necessarily tell you how many, but I could tell you that she fought at 118 and 140 in the same year. So when we, like you said, when we talk about pound for pound, that's a pound for pound champion.
Literally. I think she won a belt too at like in the 130s. So she won and defended a world title in 3 different divisions in the same year. That's ridiculous. Particularly, she's 47-3-1, 31 knockouts. She's also got the most knockouts of any woman on the pound for pound list. She's got more knockouts than most women got fights. And she is a unified featherweight champion. Her last fight was a loss to, it was a classic fight, Katie Taylor, unanimous decision 10. That was back in November 15th. Leads us right into number 2. Coming in at number 2, Katie Taylor, 24-1, 6 knockouts. She's had the 2 classic fights with Amanda Serrano, well deserved. Number 2, she is the undisputed junior welterweight champion, and she's also a lightweight champion. She's she's one of the 2 double division champions on the list. That's why she's number 2. Again, she got that fight with Amanda back in November. Look, number 1's no surprise. We all know who the fuck the GOAT is. Claressa Shields, 15-0, 3 knockouts. Again, don't let the 3 knockouts fool you. She can bang. She is the unified middleweight champion. She is a light heavyweight and heavyweight champion at the same time, ladies and gentlemen. That's why she's pound for pound number 1. Her last win was against Vanessa LePage. She got a TKO in 2. I mean, do I really need to say more about Claressa Shields, bro?
I think the only thing kind of keeping Claressa from not just being the best fighter, but really captivating people is the opposition, right? So she's had some great opponents throughout her career, but we are sort of at a point where we don't know what the most interesting dance partner for is. I think obviously, we kind of hope that it's Shadeja, and now that Shadeja has kind of moved into the pound for pound conversation, you know, maybe that fight starts to become more appealing to people.
I think, to be honest with you, you know, and I would say, for me anyway, before Shadeja's win where she picked up her strap, and I still think, you know, Claressa talent-wise is levels above most people, not just women boxers, just people, right? When you look at her skill set, if you translate it, you know, I've often said this, if you put Claressa Shields' talent in a male boxer, that guy would have to have a Brinks truck with all the, you know, the amount of money and endorsements that be coming his way. I think Claressa Shields is just on a whole other planet. But when you look at what Shadeja has, right, people forget she's a D1 athlete. You know what I mean? She was playing ball. You know what I mean? She could have been in the WNBA for fucking around. And, you know, here she is winning world titles. So it's not like she's a slouch. She's a world-class athlete. And I think she's sharpening her tools now. She's at a point now where things are starting to come back together. I think maybe 1-2 more fights, her and Claressa would be, to me, the biggest fight in women's boxing.
And stay tuned for episode 3 of The Fight Life with Shadeja Green coming early 2025. Nibs, take us through the men's.
Well, we got Mr. Benavidez, David, coming in at number 10. Sorry, folks, I didn't get their records pulled up. So, David Benavidez, number 10. Look, to me, I thought, at least for my money, he's a guy that you could have put in as a comeback fighter of the year, right? You look at, and I don't even necessarily know that he needed to come back, but, you know, you look at what he's done in his new division at light heavyweight, right? And you go, well, shit, you know, he could be the man fucking around at the end of the day. So he is the WBC interim super middleweight champion, and now also the WBC interim light heavyweight champion. So he's got an interim belt in 2 divisions. That's why he's on the list. We got Shakur Stevenson coming in at number 9. I mean, this is one I struggle with, bro. I'm not even gonna lie. And the reason I struggle with it isn't because of the talent. We all know Shakur Stevenson is talented. He's 22-0, 10 knockouts. His last fight was against Artem. I don't know how to pronounce that last name.
I think it was Artem Gulmarian, and it wasn't his best night, but we also have to keep in mind that was also an Olympic bronze medalist that he was in with, who did a good fight with Frank Martin. It was kind of a flip a coin. So that certainly wasn't a bum. But I think when we talk about Shakur, we're expecting, just based on the talent, that not even expecting, it just would seem that it's obvious this is one of the most talented guys in boxing. And at least since the De Los Santos fight, I think people feel like these performances are falling flat. And we already expect him to be technical, but I think that it's starting to get a little bit stale. And where we thought he would just sort of take off and separate himself from the pack, it feels like it's slowing down. And so we're not sure where we're going in terms of Shakur's direction.
I mean, look, this is a little bit of a tie-in considering, who's up the list a little bit. We all know what fight we want to see him in 2025. You know what I mean? Floyd Schofield is cool. And
hell of a fight. It's a hell of a fight.
Hell of a fight. But we'll talk about this in a second. But coming in at number 8, to me, is one of the most slept-on fighters on the pound-for-pound list, and that's Junto Nakatani. 29-0, 22 knockouts, bantamweight champion. His last fight, he got a TKO 6 against Dasani Salapat. Look, I'm here to tell you, bro. Everybody wants to see him in an Inoue fight. Junto Nakatani is showtime. He is highlight reel waiting to happen. If you haven't seen him fight, do yourself a service, look him up, and I guarantee you will not be disappointed. A lot of these Japanese fighters, I'm here to tell you, they coming for these. They coming.
We're in a golden age of Japanese boxing, brother.
Yeah, and hey, the Tokyo Center gets shut down when this dude fights. By the way, he is him and Inoue are our versions of Tank and Canelo, like over there. Like they shut down the city when these dudes fight. So speaking of Tank Davis, Gervonta Davis, 30-0, 28 knockouts, lightweight champion, not light heavyweight. Lightweight champion. We all saw the highlight reel knockout he had against Frank Martin back in June. And everybody in their mother that's worth a damn, that's been watching boxing for any decent amount of time, wants him and Shakur Stevenson to quit the yapping and fucking fight each other.
Quit the yapping and make it happen, bro.
And I think if you have that fight, whoever wins will propel themselves into the top 3, in my opinion. Period.
Like a genuine superstar, because what we're talking about, we got Tank and Shakur. These are great talents, and they're so talented that they remain on our list, but neither of them have been active enough or like exciting enough at the moment to become the guy, right? Our guy right now really is Bam. I think there's no doubt in terms of guys from the States. Bam Rodriguez is the guy. And these guys could be the guy, and they've been around longer. And so you expect that they're going to take those steps. But ultimately, Bam has been the one that has taken the steps up, taken the risky fights, taken the 50-50 fights. And so it's hard to put Shakur and Tank, in the top 5 with the types of fights they've had.
I like how you did that, because guess who's coming in at number 6? Jesse Bam Rodriguez, 21-0, 14 knockouts. Junior bantamweight champion. He beat Pedro Guevara. I hope I'm saying that right in his last fight. Got a TKO in 3 back in November. Look, the world is Jesse's oyster at this point, bro. He can basically do no wrong in my eyes. And he gives you a little bit of everything, right? He can have a virtuoso performance, but then he can also get in there with, a super talented vet and give you high-level War Gotti at the same time and come out on the top end of that. And he's just vulnerable enough to where you want to watch him, because you never know. Love it, Jesse Bam Rodriguez coming in at number 6. And that, again, to Dakota's point, that's why he's above both Tank and Shakur, is because he's taking those fights we all want to see. Number 5, slipping down the list a little bit. He was number 3, but, let's be honest. Even though he's number 5, he is the biggest name in the sport of boxing right now. It's Canelo Alvarez. Some of you might know him as Sal. We call him Canelo around here. 62-2-2, 39 knockouts, super middleweight champion, unified, by the way. Not that it matters. He's one of those guys, belts don't fucking matter. Canelo Alvarez could drop every belt he has, fight tomorrow, make $1 billion. He last fought Edgar Berlanga. Way more respect for Edgar Berlanga after that fight. Got that unanimous decision 12. Here we go, man. Creme de la creme.
Real quick, just to add to Canelo, I know people have been very critical, including us, by the way, of the fights he's taken this year. But in retrospect, having a year where he's beaten guys 10 years younger than him in Jaime Munguia and Edgar Berlanga, if that's a bad year for him, that already speaks to
Yeah.
the type of career that he's having. If he retired 2 years ago after the Bivol fight, he's a Hall of Famer. This is all just the cherry on top for him now. And until we see some major slippage or he starts taking, Jake Paul type fights, he's here to stay on that pound for pound list, because when you're 62, 2-2, I don't know how many more guys we're going to have that fight that many times,
Bro, his 2 losses are against 2 of the best fighters, not only at their times, but period. Like you said, up until his most recent fight, Bivol was on this pound for pound list ahead of Canelo. You know what I'm saying? Then you lose to Floyd Mayweather. No one is ever going to fault you for a loss to Floyd Mayweather. I don't care who you are, right? Actually, having Floyd Mayweather on your record is a dub. You know what I mean? So, look, Canelo is Canelo, bro. And like you said, he hasn't looked bad in any of his like usually you get a guy you hear 62-2, he looks like he's had 62 fights. You know what I'm saying? Canelo looks like he could go out and fight tomorrow. Like, again, like you said, if fighting Jaime Munguia, Berlanga is a bad year, okay. Look at some of the other guys on the list, but I digress. We'll get back to business here.
And it'll also be the same people that talk about who's Canelo's fighting, which, again, I agree he deserves some criticism. But then we'll say, oh, but Tank doesn't have to take any big fights because he's the money. There's a double standard.
Plus, you look at who Canelo's already beaten, right? I could see if Canelo's 62 wins were against all bums. You know what I'm saying?
It's not a Chavez
everybody.
Jr. 62 fights.
Exactly. You know what I mean? And let's face it, then the proof is in the pudding. Then he gets in there with a guy 10, 15 years younger than him and makes him look like a bum. So stop the cap. At number 4, solidifying himself as the best light heavyweight, not only of now, but possibly of all time, Artur Beterbiev. 21-0, 20 knockouts. Light heavyweight undisputed champion, recently beating by majority decision Dimitri Bivol on October the 12th. Bro, I'll be honest with you, man. What's crazy is the only reason he's not higher is because of the guys we have at 1, 2, and 3. You know what I'm saying? It's almost it. And you could also almost do a 1A, 1B type situation with pretty much any of the guys in the top 5, if we're being honest. But coming in at number 3, and I'll be honest with you, it was hard for me to keep him from being number 2. But considering the year the guy a bit above him has had, Terrence Bud Crawford, bro, 40-0, 31 knockouts. He is now a junior middleweight champion, beating Israel Madrimov in August by unanimous decision 12. I think we have to speak to that, bro. Terrence Crawford is a junior middleweight champion. Considering the fact that he started his career at 130, he's now a junior middleweight champion. A lot of people thought he was too small to be moving up, but a lot of people thought he was too small when in his last fight. And look how that turned out, against Spence. I think Terrence Crawford is just one of those guys. He's a gem. We got to love him while we got him.
I think my only criticism of Terrence is his activity. We just don't get to see him fight. And that's not a new problem. That's an old problem with Terrence. And again, there's so much talent in boxing. He could easily be the top guy. But when you fight every 18 months, it's tough to keep people's attention. And that's always kind of been what's held Terrence back from not just being one of the best of his era, but being an all-timer.
And I think it's 2 different problems, right? I think early on in his career, nobody wanted to fight him. You know what I'm saying? People were avoiding him like the plague. Now Now it's where everybody wants to fight him, but he's picking and choosing who he's going to fight, and he's earned that right. Let's be clear, he's earned the right to do so, but it's two totally different problems. But you're right, that's the only thing keeping him out of the number 2 spot, because the monster is at number 2. Naoya Inoue. I always fuck up his first name. It's all right.
Nah, you nailed it.
And he's 28-0, 25 knockouts. He's a junior featherweight undisputed champion, beating Louis Dahini. I know I said that wrong, right? I don't care. TKO 7.
TJ Dehaney.
Oh, yes, his first name is Luis. I didn't know that. TJ. But yeah, TJ Dehaney. Either way, he got knocked out by one of the most vicious body punches I've ever seen in my life. Look, man, this dude's nickname is, it couldn't have been better picked, right? This dude is a monster. I don't think there's a better small weight fighter in the world than the monster Inoue, bro. And he also comes from a fighting family. I know his brother just lost, but there's some high level shit going on in the Inoue household, bro. And then, number 1, I mean, come on, bro. I mean, stop playing games. We Alexander Usyk, for all the reasons we mentioned earlier when we were going over our list here, 23-0, 14 knockouts, undisputed heavyweight champion. He beat Tyson Fury a couple days ago on the 21st, 10 days ago, removed. And by the way, he's also going through a war-torn country situation. To me, Alexander Usyk, hands down, number 1. And I know there are a lot of people who will say pound for pound, heavyweight shouldn't be at the top of the list. Say that to his face.
Yeah, and this ain't your average heavyweight. This is a former undisputed cruiserweight who had to put on weight to become the best heavyweight in the world. I think any argument that Usyk is not the number 1 pound for pound guy, there's plenty of great guys you could put there, but what he's doing is really special right now. And I think that I could confidently say I think that he's the top guy pound for pound. What a year. What a year, bro. A wild year in boxing, some major shifts. If you want to check out Nibs's pound for pound list, head over to ITRBoxing.com. If you want to get an in-depth article about what our picks are, I'm going to be having that up tomorrow as well. So head on over to ITRBoxing.com. Head on over to the ITR Boxing merch store. We got some great stuff. Zab Judah is now doing merch on our site. We're very excited about that. And before we wrap up 2024, Nibs, tell the people why they should support local boxing in 2025.
For one, all the reasons we just mentioned, but I just want to say, look, we were talking about the Olympics earlier, right? And you look at all these Olympic champions, all these Olympic folks that were getting the recognition on this world stage that they're probably never going to get again. Look at the communities that they went back to when they won, right? These communities were supporting them the entire time. They go back to these communities heroes, right? Because people look to them like heroes. We've forgotten that here in the U.S., right? We've kind of forgotten what it means to put yourself through the paces it means to be a boxer. We're all mortal humans. These guys are literally putting their lives on the line for our entertainment. And then they're doing it at the highest level, right? Most of them, even the ones that aren't, from the jobbers to the club fighters to the guys that are just there for the paycheck to the world champions. They all need your support, because without it, they are nothing and we are nothing without them. Support your local boxer, bro.
Happy New Year to everybody that tuned in. We really appreciate you, Nibs. Been a pleasure this year, spending this many hours on the mic with you, brother, and I look forward to doing it again in 2025. Peace
Happy
out,
New
y'all.
Year.